Hello and welcome to what seems to be a very well timed episode of Not Another Podcast with the Esports Social Club. That's right, we've managed to make it to our own schedule and somewhat relatively stick to it. I'm James Jimenez O'Cowan, and joining me is Ian Sniper Turner and Jody McAleer. Gentlemen, we have backed it up and actually got ourselves to a podcast on time.
I'm
This is quite
impressed.
appealing.
I mean,
Woo.
well, I don't know about on time, but on the schedule.
Look, I had Kmart to go to. I have a New Zealander to feed and bed, and he doesn't have his own car, so
Mac,
we out here.
What's it with you and just picking up stray New Zealanders and fostering them?
It's we're like a halfway house. We're just trying to teach them how to be Australian. Blend them back into society and get them to understand, the Australian culture and way of life. And then after that, we set them free. We let them off into the wild. They can either go back to New Zealand, a more cultured person, or they can hang around and, move the fuck out of my house. Yeah.
So you're just trying to ingratiate them into our culture. To be honest, I don't think Sydney's a good example of just culture in general. I don't feel as though it's a real hub of anything other than misery, to be fair.
Yeah, you need to take them to the gong. That's where all the culture is.
It can be like that sometimes.
Exactly. See, the thing is, right, Sydney, you leave it for 200 years, there's no culture. At least with yogurt, you can leave it for 3 days and it'll breed more culture than Sydney.
I knew that was going somewhere, eh?
But anyway,
look, Sydney can be rough. It gets a bit of a bad rap, but it's okay. Could be worse. Could be Adelaide.
Very true.
Yeah, exactly. You could be making teams go to Adelaide for esports. That'd be awful.
Could be Perth.
We've made teams go there for esports before too.
Yeah, that actually turned out all right though, didn't it?
True. Well, yeah, to varying degrees of success, I guess. But I mean, while we're talking about cities, the home of esports still remains as Sydney for the time being. But gentlemen, is there the winds of change blowing? Is that something that we're potentially forecasting maybe for next year?
Well, what makes you ask that, Jim?
I don't know. Just
well, there's IEM
just
and
hearing the winds
we all
of
know
change.
they've got a wet dream for that one to happen. So, I mean, look, that'd be nice to happen as well.
Yes, we are live right now, Jess.
But I think it just makes more sense to be Sydney for now. Very central, easy to get accommodation, stuff like that. So, good public transport, or however you want to look at it, it's really good for people who have travelled to the state. Now, I probably could say the same thing about Melbourne, but who knows? We don't go there enough. I moved to Sydney for esports. Didn't pan out. But, I made it work anyway. So, yeah. So, I don't know. Hardly, Jim. But look, it gets a bad rap, but I think it's all right. I don't think the winds of change are what you'd be referring to, probably like the ESL headquarters, stuff like that. If you think they're like making or breaking where the home of esports is. But as far as I know, they're not going
just a new lease on life.
Yeah, just a new lease on life.
Yeah. Either way, we'll see what happens. I mean, obviously with the bigger events moving to Melbourne, it seems as though with Riot no longer having an office in Sydney, it just seems as though the stranglehold Sydney had on esports is somewhat just starting to loosen a little bit. I think that's probably the best way to put it, is the fact that one of the major
it's a good point, but didn't OPL move to Melbourne last year or this year anyway? Oh man, this year.
The teams did. A lot of the teams actually were basing themselves in Melbourne and flying up.
That's ridiculous, but yeah, okay. Yeah, that's right, because the studio was in Sydney, so they had to come to Sydney every time they had a match.
I mean, yeah. You wouldn't go and tell an OPL team or Riot how to spend their money, would you?
No, I wouldn't dare.
Leave that one alone.
Wouldn't dare.
No,
obviously didn't work out too well.
What have I missed? Did someone who's telling people to spend their money?
Well,
No.
it's more that they've
Stimulate the economy back.
pulled out of
Oh,
OCE
right, yeah.
because we're not commercially viable, I think was what
Right.
they said.
Either way, gentlemen, there's been a lot going on with esports events wrapping up for the end of the year. It's that time of year. It's the silly season in the sense that a lot of teams and players are traveling home. Their commitments and their playing days for 2020 wrapping up. Some probably a little bit earlier than others if they're not opting to play some of the tournaments that are coming up. I'm talking namely Extremesland. That's really it across any of the titles that actually have an international / major tournament coming up. So we're not seeing some of the bigger entities actually play along and get themselves into Extremeslands, like your Order, like your Avant, Chiefs, and Renegades. They're opting out of Extremesland because they are, after a very weary year, taking some time away and using that player break.
Yeah, I think it's, quality decision. I was talking to Annette the other day, and Annette was like, oh, I get to see Josh for the first time in over a year, coming up this week or whenever it was that he's going home from Melbourne. So, missing one competition after winning 10 for them in particular, I don't think it's like a terrible decision. And it's room as well for like some of the other teams that are a bit like lower on the food chain to show themselves. There's teams in this tournament like that are planning on playing in it that I haven't had a chance to watch or cast for a very long time, like a very long time. So I'm kind of pumped to see what those teams have, and I'm not busy that weekend too, so that's very good.
Yeah, well, I guess you want my opinion. Well, look, a break is inevitable over Christmas. No one's going to be on to prac, so it's a waste of time sitting around at your PC. There's still the international teams, and all those guys are still playing, so I guess you could still theorize if you wanted to. But otherwise, yeah, it just makes sense. Enjoy some time with your family, especially for the boys that were interstate. You can't take that stuff for granted. So, yeah, just get home and enjoy the break and come back next year and watch the people wear the ring rust off and people get excited about the upsets when Renegades don't win 11 in a row. And then it all count for nothing when they start winning again.
Yeah, it'll be a good opportunity for some of the newer teams to get their time in the spotlight. We're seeing some invites trickle down to teams that might not normally get to play in this competition. And obviously with an open qualifying system as well, we're going to see even more teams that typically won't get a run in a high-level broadcasted event. And for them, that's going to be a wealth of experience. I mean, albeit at the end of the year, but something they can take on into the next.
So do we know what teams are... Have we invited any teams?
Yeah, we have. It's been a few teams already invited into Extremesland, and we did have to change one of the teams, and that was unfortunate because Paradox were one of the invited teams, and they were not able to actually attend. It was a bit of a miscommunication there with them that they had said yes to it, but actually the rest of the team hadn't been consulted. So there will be Control Esports, there will be Downfall, there will be Vertex, and I think now Riot as well. So a confirmation as to which Riot that is, because I think there was a split in that roster. But I'll leave that one in the court of Conky for him to confirm as to which three that one was going with. But there are teams that, obviously we've seen Downfall make it to the Perfect World competition, and as well as Vertex, we saw them taking down some pretty highly fancied opposition. So I think, knowing what those guys are capable of, I think this is actually going to be very interesting competition, knowing that some of the heavy hitters aren't there.
Yeah, I feel, just looking at those teams as well. So wait, who was there instead of Paradox, or did you say Mitch was organising that?
It was going to be Riot.
Riot. Okay. Yeah. This is looking all right. There's still, a few teams I thought like might have been playing the comp that aren't there. Like I thought Chiefs might have, but I think they're on a break as well.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe anyone in the top 3. Yeah, obviously other than Renegades because they've travelled interstate. The other guys, I'm not too sure about if Avant are in the Avant house or not. I'm not sure,
No.
but I would have expected 1 or 2 of those guys to go for it.
Yeah. What's because the prize pool is only 1,500 USD, right?
That's
Yeah.
only.
Yeah. So for an 8-team tourney, what's split? Is that anywhere? Do you know what that is, Jim?
It's only top 2.
The first,
It's only the top
so
2
only
that
top
get
2.
stuff. So it's 1,000 and
Okay.
500.
Yeah, right.
US.
Well, I can probably see that from a player's perspective. If you don't viably think that you could make the top 2, although
Here we go.
Is there any entry fee? Is there any entry?
Are we
fee? I don't know,
going
I'm just
down
trying
the Are we going down the path of I don't want to go to LAN because I won't win? Is that where we're going, Mac? Are you going to back those people up?
Like,
There's no entry fee.
I'm not saying I would have that mindset. I'm saying I can see that there would be people out there saying, "Oh, I will not win or come second, so there's no point," which I think is stupid personally, because I would like to see, it's pretty much a chance to have a shot at some of these bigger teams, get some experience, so at least for some lower teams, it's a very good opportunity. And I guess it is just another title you can put next to your name for the bigger teams that could have gone for it. At the moment, I'm looking at the teams that are there.
You'll never be a bigger team if you're not entering these tournaments.
Yeah.
And what's the point of playing?
It's also a chance for some of these players to showcase themselves too. I think, individually, obviously beyond your team's aspirations, a chance for you to put your name up in lights, because the closed qualifiers, it's not even a qualifier, sorry, it's the closed finals will be broadcast on the main Extremesland channel as well. A lot of those games are going on hltv.org as well. So good chance for you to pad your stats against some opposition that aren't the top 4. And I think that's a real opportunity there that players are missing if they're not taking it. So knowing that, as I said, some of the bigger fish are not swimming in this pool, that should be
just be enough. Yeah,
it should be enough. And the fact that there's no entry fee, and there's an open qualifier. Sure, you got to get through that. They're taking 4 teams from it though, so you don't even have to win the open qualifier. You just have to get themselves through to that semi-finals round of the open qualifier, and you're there. They take all 4 of you. What do you got to lose?
Very, very true. I don't know. I'm kind of sad that Rooster's missing. I'm kind of sad that Rooster got themselves in the shit twice now. That's pretty stupid. And now we don't get to see what they are capable of, at least not for another year. So,
yeah, unfortunately for those guys, they made their bed. Now they have to sleep in it.
Yeah.
So, it is what it is for them, unfortunately. But yeah, I think that really, if anything, just highlights that there is a real need for depth of talent in this region, and this is the opportunity for them to gain valuable experience. You don't nurture talent unless you give them opportunities to sharpen their swords. And
this is what we've been talking about, is a really good grassroots opportunity. So if anyone was to throw it away, then you're only just not only doing yourself a disservice, but also the community.
Absolutely. And I think in a time where there are opportunities and choices for players across multiple titles at the moment, every opportunity needs to be taken. And I think that if you want to see a stronger CSGO community, or on the flip side of things, obviously we saw a LAN competition for Valorant cancelled because the sign-ups and interest wasn't there.
Yeah.
I mean, these grassroots events not getting the numbers that they need is not going to really help anybody, to be honest, because if you're an aspiring player and you're seeing this, you've got less opportunity to play. And if you're an aspiring TO who's taking your time to put these events together, because let's be real, the grassroots is a lot of volunteers and people giving up their time and often their own money make up grassroots. So having those guys discouraged by the fact that there's very little interest for these events is only doing harm. So I think at every opportunity, everybody should be getting behind it, whether or not they're actually playing in it. They might not be able to play. They should be encouraging others to play. I don't think I should. I don't think I should see anybody talking ill of an event, a grassroots event, unless there's an agenda there. So yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed to see that obviously there are events getting cancelled. Yeah, the time of year might not be fantastic, but let's be real. There's still plenty of people out there that can make this time of year work for them. So yeah, I think there's a few people there that maybe tried to leave things to the last minute with their signups, and that didn't really pan out for them at all. In fact, it harmed.
You can always
everybody.
It's kind of sucks to say it, but like you can always withdraw, right? Sign up, find out if you can make it or not make it, whatever. If things change, everyone knows things change. Something could come up tomorrow that stops you from going to your tournament. So sign up, put the numbers on the sheet. It encourages everyone else to sign up, and then after that, you can pull out if you want. But yeah, it was a little bit disheartening, even though it's Valorant, and I couldn't give a shit about it. That Kev's LAN got cancelled because LAN is LAN.
Yeah, that. In all honesty, I saw that weekend as a bit of a pinch for player base because I feel as though Valorant is still pulling from the CS player base for a lot of those smaller events. So obviously, seeing Extremesland qualifiers, open qualifiers on the same weekend as a LAN event, I think maybe there's still some crossover there where players are
playing
trying
both
their hand at
games.
everything. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we've seen some of the I wouldn't say top tier CS players, but those that were close to the top really go across to Valorant, and the early adapters were quite successful and are still quite successful, and they're only getting better. So that's probably encouraged a whole heap of players that were maybe seeing themselves on the cusp of something in CSGO to go across to Valorant and just chance their hand and see where they're going to land in terms of the pool of players.
Yep. I've seen like success from some players as well that like wouldn't have even been considered in a top team. Like they might have made MDL like once or twice, and you like always at the bottom of MDL. But then in Valorant, they just seem to be the next bloody up and comers and just super sharp, super mechanically like talented. And they're also not at the top of Valorant, but they're not far away. Everything in Australia is really close at the moment, except I feel like EXO is kind of like that step above.
Everyone else?
Order in particular, huh?
Everyone else, or just one or two teams?
Like Order's a very good team, but whatever happened in the run up to the final, like they were losing maps to some teams I didn't think they'd lose maps to, and then they didn't get a map in the finals either. Like, and it was relatively, I wouldn't even say it was that close. It was 3-0. I think one of the two of the maps might have been a little close, but I don't think it was like any overtime thrillers or anything like that. But I also was working like because it was on exactly at the same time as all DreamHack was on, so I can't complain because work's work. But I would have liked to have sat down and watched it all.
But talk about splitting the user base though. Right then and there, you've got people forced to choose. If their internet's not good enough, they're forced to choose.
Yeah. In Australia, that's possible.
Everything's possible in Australia. But obviously with Valorant wrapping up for the year, knowing EXO that obviously have taken out First Strike, I'm glad to see that tournament finally out of the headlines. Obviously it was in it for all the wrong reasons when it should have been in the spotlight for all the right reasons, I feel. So I feel as though, if anything, people should look at the fact that EXO will get something out of this. If anything, I think for those guys, knowing how Riot is treating this region, they should be looking to use that exposure to get themselves put into other regions and maybe make that move. I know a few of those players have put their hand up and said, we're willing to do what it takes to get to that next level. And I think that's fantastic. But knowing that if they stay in OCE, they're just going to be in ELO hell, because that is looking at the Valorant Champions Tour plans. That is very disappointing for anyone in OCE, knowing that fact that we still have to qualify through other regions to get anywhere. It feels like the World Cup of soccer all over again until Australia was given a pathway through Asia. We still had to to play against the 4th best South American or 5th best South American team to make it into the World Cup. That sucks because we were clearly the best team or one of the better teams in that region, and our pathway was skewed. And it's the same now for these guys. These guys now will have to be, I guess, almost up against it. Like there's trickle down teams in NA and EU that probably wouldn't touch these guys, that are probably going to be in the box seat compared to them. So I think it's disheartening for anyone that stays in this region. So they really got to get themselves out and overseas as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I can't wait till next year to see what the pathway Riot thinks is going to work for us is, and to then make my opinion of how out of touch they are, or if they actually cut the region a break for once. But it does not look like at the moment that it's going to be the latter. I just want next year to come fast. There's going to be like a moderate break and then everything will probably kick off again, towards the end of January. I don't even know what the next, what do you think the next things are going to call? Because that was like first strike, right? Like, is it just like, you're not going to have second strike?
Depends.
Some people are already on their third strike.
Yeah, third strike for stolen content. That's what it's for.
Yeah. Did you guys have you watched any of the EU or NA first strike stuff, or have you been just not really touching?
No, it's clashed with a lot of prior commitments for myself, so unfortunately I haven't been able to get into it too much. But from what I'm seeing as well, the game, I don't know. I feel like it's being done better in other regions as well, and. I mean, in terms of production, it's probably on a similar level, but there's just one or two things here and there that just really shows the polish from other regions. And yeah, a lot of people could put together a basic broadcast and get away with that. But it's just those, funnily enough, it's the small things that really take it to that next level that I feel like those guys are doing right. They've just obviously got a really experienced team. Obviously, the fact that even the EU First Strike broadcast being broadcast out of the LEC studios really just adds that next level of class and really makes it look like a world-class product.
Yeah. They had there was a guy on the desk there with Mitch Man, and is it Lothar? I think he is he got picked up as talent for that, which I feel like is a huge, huge gig. And I think he came from Hearthstone. I think that's what he was, like a Hearthstone player or something. And it said he's just like a G2 personality. So I was interested to see him picked up. And then the desk host as well was like a lady that had done work with Red Bull Gaming, I think. But it was just a bunch of names that I was super unfamiliar with. I thought they would have gone for more familiar names on, what I would consider the bigger Riot broadcast, in the EU studios.
Well, whereabouts are you going to get them from, Mac?
Yeah, exactly.
What's the other what's the other company that they obviously won't get you from if you work for them? So they found their way and they got their staff. I mean, the host Yinsu, was it? So
not 100% versed on that.
Yeah, so that was for the EU broadcast you were talking about with Mitch Man and Pansy.
Yeah.
So
and then there was a lot of R6, I think, talent doing a lot of the NA First Strike. They seem to be all transitioning over towards
even Counter-Strike guys like DDK and Sean Gares. So
that was actually Pog, because do you know that there is just so many fucking play-by-play duos, and they keep on, I don't know, play-by-players keep trying to do color or slight analysis, and you listen to it and you're like, no, this is, you don't sound like you know what you're talking about. And it's really frustrating.
Mac, this is my life in Counter-Strike.
Yeah, I know. And then when it came after that, and then I listened to the couple of the maps of the finals with bloody Sean Gares on the desk, and he's like, and before things were happening, he was saying, this is what they're going to do. Look how they're structuring and stuff. And you could tell DDK was still trying to intro the map, but Sean Gares was already nerding out about how this round's going to play out with the team comps and stuff. And I was like, this is the first time I've heard anyone go this hard on the color, and I fucking loved it.
Yeah.
And Sean Gares has a really nice voice as well, so it was a good. I'm always down for the bi nationality, the bi
You mean an American and a British person?
Yeah.
As a duo?
Like, as a duo, yeah. I'm always down for the over the seas sort of duos more so than the.
See, that's why a lot of the analysts.
Single origin.
Yeah, single origin duos.
Single accent duos.
Well, a lot of the analysts didn't go into casting because it's a lot more work. You get paid a lot more in casting than in desk work. And you would see the difference when an analyst did do some commentary. So when someone like Sean Gayers was doing Counter-Strike commentary, you saw the difference immediately. And I think that's what people like about Launders as well. He's got that IGL brain. He doesn't come from I just want to be on camera and commentate background. He comes from a solid Counter-Strike base. And then you've got other people like Moses, a notable mention, who's now a coach. So, they could really break down rounds much better than your normal play-by-play. And that's why when a normal play-by-play person tries to break something down, it's a little bit cringe because chances are they're totally off center.
Yeah, I feel like I've been on that side of the river a lot of the time when I've tried to do it. But I feel like I've gotten a lot better personally. But, that's just my opinion.
I think it's...
Anyway, we're not here to talk about that. I want to talk on this quickly.
It's coming down to knowing what you don't know. And
exactly.
If you know what you don't know, you're not going to try and make comments on it.
It's those people that think they know. They're the real herders.
Yeah.
When I mean, even Pilly grinds my gears sometimes.
What's he done? Put him on blast.
Back in the day,
he's an avid listener. Go.
I know. I don't want to lose a listener, but
he's a watcher though.
I can't remember if I ever said this to him, but he always goes like, "Oh yeah, they know exactly what they're doing right now, so they need to mix it up. Like they're getting counter-stratted, so they need to mix it up and do something and get aggressive." I'm like, when you know what the other person's doing, you're literally just waiting for them every round to mix it up. That's what you're expecting. So when people do mix it up, it's like that's not the answer, So that's funny.
I believe the term is booked. They've been booked.
They've been booked. When you've been booked, and then there'll be that one guy who's like your fifth player. He's like, maybe we should mix it up. You're like. Fuck.
That little voice inside
that one person who's like, you already thought about kicking this guy anyway, and now he's just telling you like, maybe we should mix it up again. Maybe you should swing to the other side before we know what they're doing. And the other team's like, oh yeah, they're not doing what they're normally doing, and then they're onto it. You booked.
And then there's that one guy that's like, just flash me in.
Oh.
Doesn't tell you what he's doing. Just flash me in.
Or worse, the guy that says, don't flash. That guy who's like, I'm going in dry, don't flash. Nobody flash.
And then dies to the AWP straight away. And you're like, oh.
In which scenario is not flashing the right thing to do? Because I think never. Because if you're flashing properly, then it shouldn't make a difference.
Dude, flashes, like, if you watch the teams that make it towards the top of the scene, at least in Australia,
they make or break.
And then you look at literally any team under the top 4, I swear the difference is just how on point their flashes are.
Yeah.
Because they just get so many more free kills, and it's all just like,
there's
so many other factors.
Flashes don't even make a difference in this game. Like in 1.6, you got flashed, you were like out. You weren't even one and done, you were just done. You're like, oh, they booked me with a flash, I'm out. You're dead. You don't even get one kill. In this game, you're like flashed. You're still looking at it as it explodes. 2 seconds later, you're back. You're good to go. So just throw the damn flash. Anyway, I'll go on a tangent there, but that was all from just me. Back in the day, Pilly used to irk me when he'd say that.
Our entire first podcast back was just full of tangents, and I'm here for it. But 2.5 hours later, I was probably less here for it.
Yeah, I'm not here for a 2-hour game this week. You know what I mean? Like,
no.
Yeah. I got one other topic to do with First Strike, specifically like our one, the Oceanic one. So the casters were requested in the name of inclusivity, not exclusivity, to use pronouns of they, their, them for everyone in the competition, and they had to cast using like open pronouns or whatever those pronouns are, like they, their, them, for everything, for everyone.
Where was that announced? I didn't see that.
I don't think that was announced, but I know some people got in trouble because they weren't sticking to it. And then some of the casting, you could tell they were focusing a lot on
That
it.
must
'cause it
be
was very
like a
forced.
Riot thing.
I think it was a Fortress thing because it's their TOS. And if I feel like they weren't even able to say like man advantage and stuff like that. I'm just like, what? You had to be person advantage or
Player advantage, numbers advantage.
Yeah, player advantage, just like talk around it. And
yeah, I mean that's
it was odd.
I'm
not
out.
against it, but what I'm going to say is the fact that if you are putting your talent in a position where they're not able to give their best, that's only harming your product. That's all. That's, if you've got commentators that are play-by-play and they're having to second guess themselves,
yeah,
nothing's going to roll off their tongue nicely. It's not going to, you're not going to find them at their peak. And it's the same with anybody else that's put in a situation where they're having to constantly revise things. Don't get me wrong. I think, I'm not against it, but I just don't think it's conducive to the best possible product, particularly for commentators who may have already been potentially upset with the situation that they were in. And I heard some rumblings around that too. So obviously,
money.
Obviously, in terms of what they were being paid, what the rates were for that, it obviously is going to put you out if you're then having extra conditions placed on you and extra expectations.
This is like that next level above not being able to say terrorist.
Yeah.
Like this is that next level of just like censorship. Like, okay.
Attackers.
Yeah, I just don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me.
They were still saying bomb as well. I saw like Ben on Twitter was like, am I just being a boomer here, or is like these casters saying bomb
it's a spike
completely against the
Is
point?
it a spike? It's a spike.
It's spike, yeah. It's a spike in Valorant, which you go to the sites to capture the radionite, which is the green crates, and that device, the spike, is specifically made to capture the radionite, and that is what the attackers are doing.
Oh, it doesn't explode.
So it's a spike site?
No, it's not. It's like a
even though it explodes.
Thing. No, that is it capturing the radionite. Jim, okay.
Yeah. It implodes.
Tell who I'm not trying to work for.
Does it hurt people when it implodes?
Yes, because people aren't. It doesn't. I don't know. The skin of people or whatever, it just doesn't work. It's not radionite, so it dies. It disintegrates.
Jeez.
Yeah.
There you go. There's some Val lore for you.
Thanks.
Yeah, but okay. So
No
Mac,
worries.
you at least know something about Valorant, right? Like,
I like Valorant. I think Valorant's very pog. You guys don't. I do. Yeah.
But Mac, just a quick one for you, quick fire before we jump into just one last point here. Before we jump into the mailbag, do you think it's essential to know the abilities of an operator or an agent or anything like in any game?
I don't know where this is going, but I don't like it.
To cast that game, particularly if you're trying to say them and getting them wrong.
That's called just like your first cast. I feel like you should be. If you're casting, you should have at least done a little bit of research to figure out what the names of the abilities are. Like I still struggle now because like I haven't touched Valorant since the Chiefs one.
There are some people who play Dota, and it probably has like over 200 different spells, and how many characters are God knows how many characters these days. And they know every single spell, every single item, every single hero.
Yeah.
And that's why they get them. That's why they get the bucks. That's why they get the job.
With, like Daredevil Dan, who lived here for the little bit as well, the other New Zealander we housed. Yeah, there we go.
The other Hobbit.
Like he knew the damage values for like all of those abilities, per level, like what stats all the fucking heroes have and shit. And I was just like, whoa, this is like another level. Although the same can be said with us. Like I knew how much damage the AK did in what body part and stuff like that.
Yeah, I know. And that's why you get the gig.
Stopped caring and forgot about it, huh?
That's why you get the gig.
That's why you get more than an hourly rate, Mac.
Yeah. So I think what Jim's trying to say, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Jim, but we're trying to allude to the fact that if you don't know the game, you shouldn't be casting it. Someone else should be chosen who knows the game. But secondly, if you get chosen to cast, then you should do your homework and you should know what you're talking about.
Yes.
Plus, you're surrounded by other people who know what they're talking about.
What did I miss? Who did this?
Oh, there's just still some instances of commentators.
Commentator fails.
Right.
Common something, I'll tell you. But in terms of not knowing what they're actually casting, and yeah,
it irks you, Jim.
It irks me.
Yeah,
it irks me. But I mean, in terms of Valorant, we're seeing a lot of different disciplines come through from different games. But I mean, the game's been out for a while now. There is, I guess, little excuse if you're on a first strike broadcast not to know all the abilities. That's all. That's just my opinion.
Any broadcast.
It depends. Say if it was like if you're referring to people that did it from Oz, I feel like they probably aren't getting paid enough to know every term in the game.
To be fair, if I was getting
honestly,
rate,
I don't feel like they are getting paid enough to need to know every single piece of the game. Like they're getting fuck all.
To be fair, yeah, exactly. If I was getting an hourly rate,
I'm not doing
my preparation would be done while I'm earning that hourly rate. So I'd be learning the game as I'm getting paid by the hour.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
you get what you pay for. You get what you pay.
Speaking of, there's this huge advancement quickly in that too. Today in the Valorant update or in the patch notes, whatever, I saw Swifty post it. Now everyone can be in the fucking server as a spectator and you can watch the observer's POV while you are spectating. So you can choose that, kind of like what we kind of can have for CS. It goes through GoTV and stuff.
Yeah,
but that wasn't there. The way that we had to do it was literally watch it through vMix or watch it through what's this other program called? I can't remember where it is. Parsec, that's it. Or Discord, and you'd have screen share and it was like relatively quick, pretty seamless. But now it's going to be better because everyone's watching the same thing. Everyone's watching it at the same time. And the cool thing as well, even if you're on the observer's POV, and like you mentioned, you might struggle with some terms and stuff. If you do get to be at your PC watching it in game, then bang, press F1. All of a sudden, all your abilities, all the names of the abilities, straight in front of your head. So I think the ones that I struggled with, I remember I went out of my way to learn while the broadcast was on, which was during the Order Valorant Open. It was enough of a rate to care, and look, I cared because I was just trying to hone the craft to be better. But fucking Viper, like no one was picking Viper, so I had no idea. I've never chosen her, never played her. So I was like, I have no idea what these abilities are. And then all of a sudden, I think Iron picked it for Split because there's strats with Viper on Split where you can put a wall up and you can pretty much just run into the sites, etc. And I was like, Jesus, like what are all these terms? Quickly just like Googled it, like pulled the terms up or pulled all the abilities up for Viper on the side. And I was like, oh, this is better. Look, now I know. And then from there, I learned. But also I haven't had any Valorant on the horizon. I do want to try to get back to finding time to play more Valorant and just, cast more Valorant. But that's just been a pain as well with the puppy because the puppy is just very full on, trying to make her less full on. But yeah,
it's just chewing up your time, isn't it? And your arm.
And my arm, my hands. She bloody, I don't know if you can see, she got me here as well 2 days ago. Like just before my last broadcast for DreamHack in the morning, she fucking bit my jugular and like scratched it down there.
Oh.
Yeah. So might die. She might be the end of me.
Makeup. Just get that makeup.
Oh yeah, makeup. Yeah, that thing we use.
You don't have it? Or...
No, we never use makeup.
Oh, okay.
Well, last time I had makeup would have been IEM last year when we actually had a makeup lady. There's one I want to get though. I think there's like a transparent concealer or transparent foundation or something, and apparently it's clear, but it stops you from being shiny. So you just
talk to Sandman about it. He does all of his own makeup.
Talk to who?
Sandman.
Okay. Sounds like a good idea. Why am I in TeamSpeak?
Alex Blakey as well. They both do their own makeup.
There you go. We may move on.
Can we get some custom makeup tutorials? Is that a thing?
I could do that. I think there was I heard rumblings of like, I think it was, you know, how Benefit did some stuff with Click.
Yeah,
Like, you know,
I think so,
Benefit,
yeah.
the makeup brand. I was talking to Jess and I was like, oh, you should hook me up, you know, see if I put me onto some makeup companies. I'll do some bloody makeup tutorials for the boys. It'll be great. It'll be funny. It was
Should have had some friends
solid
with
content.
Should have had some friends with Benefit.
Ooh. And that's why they pay you the big butts. Big butts?
Okay.
Who's paying in butts? Sorry.
Yeah.
You could
wanna
get a
know.
sponsorship by this makeup brand. They're pretty expensive though, I think. Have you heard of them? They're called MAC.
Yeah. Well, that was the master plan, right?
Mm.
Just be like, look, it's made in the name.
It's me, your boy. That's it. That's your pitch.
By Mac for Mac.
Anyway, next
Genius.
topic is an interesting one because we saw this week a staple in the female esports scene and one of the organisations here in OCE for quite some time, Carnage, have departed the scene, and it wasn't long before they rebranded and announced their future plans and took a different direction. Now, we saw their departure video. We saw them obviously release any remaining members of their rosters that they had and took a completely different direction. We're actually now seeing them enter into the events space with their first competition, which looks to be a PUBG event. They have gone under the brand of Exist and now looking under that brand Exist to run what they call the X Games. Now, I've never heard of anything ever called X Games before, but first of all, I'm going to say, obviously, great to still have those guys around because they obviously offered a lot of opportunities to players where there were none before. And we know the circumstances in which they picked up their first team, Carnage, before they went overseas, before they were departing for an international trip. And they had obviously no one backing them from an organizational standpoint. So that was their birth into, I guess, the female scene. They were around a little bit before that. I think they had a Div 2 team or on the cusp of CG Div 2. And that was their first foray into esports. But the one that really made the splash, the one that really gave them their name and probably got them a lot of respect in the scene was their involvement with the female esports scene. So to see them take a different direction, I mean, it's fantastic. But we now have another player in the TO space, and we're starting to see this a little bit too with their ambitions as well. It looks as though they're keeping some content creators on board too. And for me, this is starting to feel a little bit like Empress Gaming, but obviously just without the female focus. So in terms of Exist, they're already, as I said, running their first events, running this weekend. They're running a PUBG event. What do you think of the choice of title? I mean, PUBG in this region probably needs a lot of love. Do you feel as though Exist is one to give it to them?
Yeah, look, I mean, if you say they need a lot of love, then you can't really begrudge anyone for giving it a shot. If they didn't do anything, then PUBG probably... I mean, PUBG right now is struggling to exist. So, you know, I dare them to give it a shot and try and stimulate PUBG in OCE and give players a reason to play. I mean, our players in PUBG were world famous, world class. They were getting picked up by teams all over the world for the first time ever in Australian esports history. You know, some CS players have been picked up before, you know, here and there, but they weren't really... They didn't cut the mustard. They didn't stick around long. They weren't, you know, they didn't have good tenure, or no one was talking about them after they got picked up. But, you know, our PUBG guys were like literally, you know, paving the way for other Aussies in PUBG. And then all of a sudden, you know, COVID, I don't know if it's COVID or if it was just basically PUBG global management and tournaments and, you know, the way that their tournament structure is kind of cucked everything there. Yeah, and then they ended up just doing an OPL before it was cool. And yeah, just shat on us. So yeah, look, I don't see why anyone would be playing PUBG, but I'm happy for these guys to give it a crack, and good luck to them. You know, I'm never going to beat up on someone for giving it a crack. especially down here. We need all we can get.
Absolutely. And in terms of the guys, and particularly the management behind Carnage, Joey, as far as I know, he's the only driving force behind that.
Yep.
He's a long time listener of ours too, so we know that he's probably going to hear this and whatnot. I think he came along at the right time when there wasn't really too many people offering opportunities for people in the space, particularly in female esports in this region. And I think he's done the same again with the direction that he's taken with Exist.
There were the people that did it for publicity reasons, just to be cool, to earn some favor with the community, or like, oh, look how inclusive we are. But really, everyone saw through it when after the female tournaments dissipated, so did their teams and their sponsorships. So Joey stuck through it even when there were no tournaments around. And obviously he was rewarded by having the best team, the best female team around. And they had some pretty good results here and there. And I think they, they were very impressive when they were on their day. And they obviously had their own issues with lineup changes and whatnot. But with Exist, I mean, good luck to him. I think we've seen what he can do, and it looks good if he can keep that going with Exist.
Well, to be fair, I haven't heard of a PUBG tournament for a very long time.
It doesn't
there
make
might be
sense.
like one this weekend for the JBL Quantum thing, and then like there's been some international ones. I only know that because Jordan, I think, has casted them, and I know, like, I've heard that he's casting that whatever weekend. So
so essentially in that instance, the OCE representatives that should have qualified for the international leagues of things were stripped of their places in international tournaments, and they were given to other regions. And they cited COVID as a response, or as a real leading factor in that. But that's bullshit, because League of Legends, were able to do it. You're talking about a company which has
the actual developer, which made like $11 million or something, and then they got bought by Tencent. And they got the China money. They
got money. And it's a huge cop-out to just say that, oh, no, due to international travel restrictions, we're stripping OCE of their spot. That's bullshit. They could have done better. They should have done better. This region's been failed by PUBG. And I feel like this is just a recurring theme in 2020, that regions are being failed by developers. So, it's good to see somebody at least trying to pick up the pieces and start to put them back together. And maybe they will be able to build something out of it. At least they'll make fans of Exist out of the existing and remaining PUBG player base. So I think if you are even thinking about entering this, if you're on the fence about entering it, jump in and get involved if you can, just supporting it, because I know they've invited a lot of teams, and it's good to see the way in which they were doing it. They actually went and sent out letters of invitation to the teams, and I've seen a lot of them posted on social media, and they went that extra step in their event planning. And I think that's really good signs from them early on, because it means they're already looking for the small details that make events unique, that make things worth taking note of. So props to them. I'm keen to see what they do. Keen to see how that develops, and obviously really hoping that tournament gets the attention that I think it deserves. So we're going to jump into what was called for early on in the week, before we'd even sat down and mooted a potential time for this podcast. Max Mailbag was already being lauded by the public. They wanted an outlet for their questions, because there were some hot topics earlier this week, Mac.
Yeah, there was a couple of uninformed individuals, or one uninformed individual on Twitter questioning all of Australian esports, and then being a hypocrite, and then, going back on what he said, and then being on both sides of the fence, and then...
Wow, that never happens.
Just trying to have all the answers, and you're like, yeah, all right, no worries. Anyway, so that tickled a lot of people in the wrong direction, which is quite rough, and I haven't even looked at what's in the mailbag, so let's crack that one open and see what we got, starting from the top. James Dolphin at Fished with 2 eyes. The big man, is there room for another IEM level event in Oz in brackets any game? If so, what game?
There's always
I
room.
think
There's always
yeah.
room. This region needs vets like
Anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking he's probably meaning like what would be a seat filler. I think that the seat filling games would be
League of Legends.
which it did. Overwatch, I think, seemed to fill seats, even though I'd never thought it would. When they have the contenders land,
Even
Although I
FGC
think-
fills seats here. Same with Rocket League, I think.
yeah, I'd go to an FGC event. I reckon like a big Smash event would be super cool.
Mm.
They did that a few years ago. They actually like crowdsourced a bunch of money from all the Smash communities in Australia, and then flew over some of the international like professional players to come and play in the tournament. And then I think a couple of those players got upset by some local domestic talent as well. So there was like
Always
you
happens.
see this like crowd reactions, everyone going "Wah!" because they're beating like this like 50th best player in the world, and like 50th best players still relatively bloody up there because Smash, it's like individuals. Each team is one person, so it's pretty high ranking.
Yeah, I mean, I reckon any game, Jim. Whether it's Valorant or what, I don't think Valorant even has legs yet. I think if you're going to try and fill a stadium or something, it's not going to be with Valorant.
It's going to be League of Legends or something like that. So to answer that, it's basically, I think there is room right now because there's nothing. So I think having maybe a second event on the calendar that's not, running on top of each other. Melbourne Esports Open obviously was that event, and I think having the two come together made sense, but it just leaves room in the calendar for maybe that second opportunity or a big event to come. I mean, I'm not going to say we're going to provide all the solutions to that, but if a developer steps up to the plate and says, yeah, you know what, Australia has got a pretty strong player base in this, we think we can fill a stadium, the doors are open. We're I think after this year, really craving some big events. So I think whatever, no word of a lie, I think whatever the big event is after after this wave of COVID, it's going to be huge.
If the flights aren't too expensive, then you can bet your bottom dollar people are going to be they're going to be coming out in droves just to meet up and get together with all their esports friends, just like IEM was. In the end, IEM was less about the Counter-Strike and more about the partying, or the not even partying, but just like meeting friends. It was like the Comic-Con for esports people.
Yeah,
absolutely. What's next, Mac?
Next, okay, we have MJ asking. Well, looks like it could be a very similar question.
Oh no.
Oh, not really. Anyway, MJ, he has asked Gfinity in brackets, but not, where OPL V1 teams are in OPL V2. I don't know what these are, but Valorant and League of Legends every week. Throw in TFT Wild Rift FGC title in question marks. All right, franchised all the time, good or bad. So I think I see what he's saying. Like,
I get what he's saying. So essentially having multiple games, the same franchises play across multiple titles, having multiple leagues of their own, and then structured into one big championship title. So essentially what Gfinity was, but with Riot titles instead.
And I'm assuming that would be like Riot funded, or like, I guess it wouldn't anymore.
Wouldn't be. And that's why you could do
else.
it, because of Riot obviously not being in the region. They are allowing anyone to host tournaments for the first time.
Right. Okay.
Look, I'd actually welcome it.
Yeah.
I think the thing that would be different would be stay away from the whole city-based location.
Yeah.
And just go for known existing brands. Maybe have some international brands as well. We know Fnatic's obviously got a presence in this region, and obviously participate already in Riot events. So having them as a draw card, and then maybe go for some other international bits and pieces here. You don't need the whole city-based franchise approach. I think definitely going for a franchise-based approach would be great, because it allows teams and organizations to build themselves a following across multiple titles, and try and essentially just grab all of the viewership across all those titles and try and convert all the fans across those games to follow one organization, or be even fans of multiple, to be honest. I think it's, it makes sense actually. So I'd be for it, obviously, having been a pretty key part of Gfinity's plans as well, and seeing what they were. I really feel as though the city-based element of things, at least from like an esports endemic side, I don't know. It actually served maybe just the distance fans of those existing teams already. It just put a barrier between them and maybe like the Chiefs that they knew, and maybe the Avant that they knew. It was it was Melbourne Avant, it was Sydney Chiefs. I think the concept was fantastic, and having multiple games, but just the city based approach, whilst it was an attempt to draw in the mainstream, ultimately hamstrung a lot of these organizations with what they could and couldn't do.
Yeah. I don't have too much more on that. I think, the more esports we get back, the better. If it's Riot, like, the better, because obviously we don't have Riot now for the foreseeable future. Not sure if that'll change going back to the stability of a COVID-safe Australia, and the ability to travel internationally. But look, the more the merrier. I think it's a great idea. Good job, MJ. All right, now let's move forward.
I just have one more point on that.
Okay, all right. Let's not move forward. Move forward.
When are we doing it, MJ?
That's all. That's what I was thinking.
And who's got the money, huh? Are you just going to throw the money in this time? Of course. Thanks, MJ.
I saw some kid posting in the Oceanic Esports group that esports in cinemas was a surefire hit. So maybe we should take.
It's not been tried before, so
no, it's new. It's a fresh approach in this region.
Yeah,
they even had some schematics as to how the stadium seating would work. So it's a new one for me.
It's just a bit far fetched for me. I don't think it would work.
All right.
Funny there was a case study.
on that note, moving on, we do have at Maverick Master asking, suffering from social anxiety and panic attacks, and that doesn't look like a question.
I'm not, unfortunately.
No, never.
I really should be with what's on my plate, but I'm not, and I don't know how. I think my life is being held together by my surrounds at the moment. So,
that was his answer to your question of the post. What were you? Or where were you when esports was created in 2017? Suffering from social anxiety and panic attacks. There you go. So,
didn't you know esports was created in 2017? I thought this was common knowledge.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Probably.
I think people took the question a little bit too literally.
My mum did. She read it and she was like,
here we go.
What? Esports has been around a lot longer than 2017. You were playing in 2003. It's like, yes, Mum, it's a stab at people who think it only started with IEM.
Very true. Well, it hit the masses with IEM at least, because there was a stadium involved in Australia.
Clickbait works.
Anyway, so MJ has a follow-up question, which is double dipping, and that's not allowed, but I think it's part of the first question. So
if the dip's
I'll
good
allow
enough.
it. I'll allow it. We'll see what the dip is at least. So if OPL V2 is probably a thing, how does the community pro scene and commercial peeps react to it walking around again? So what is this OPL V2? Is there rumbles that it might happen, or is someone else becoming the new OPL?
I think it's just a mooted idea at the moment. I mean, those sort of franchises and franchise leagues are built on commercial deals and franchises having some sort of stake in revenue share after profits and things like that. So, look, I think they should react to it positively. The problem is, and the issue is, a lot of the commercial entities that are interested in these sorts of deals want you to own the entire ecosystem. They want you to own everything within that game. So essentially, it's difficult to have those conversations with them unless you're the developer of the game. So, for example, they want in-game bits and pieces here and there. They want to be able to do things that you might not have access to just as a regular TO and just as a third party to that. So I think, they're going to be excited, but I think initially those that are really interested in that are probably not going to necessarily bite once you tell them the reality is that they can't have all these things that they thought they could. So, the issue is, for me, that the commercial interest is going to be there, but the expectations of what can be done with esports, because for a lot of them, they've just been sold on the fact that it's virtual, you can do anything. It's going to need some some expectation management, at least initially. But that being said, though, I think if you got a few of the brightest minds in the room together, I think they could probably work out a strategy to negate that, overcome that, and actually sell a product that isn't oversold.
Mm. And I'm going to agree with that. And I think, are we happy with that answer, boys? We can move into the next question.
I'm out of answers.
All right. Beautiful. Well, that's the answers for that. So the big man at Conk Y Os, he has said, Hermes tweet, let's discuss, go hard, and tagged me. So
you got an interview. You got an interview with him.
Oh yeah, it was a very good interview. I hope you all liked that. So the way that came about was in our little group chat with me, Pilly, and Jordan. I said, "Lol, Australian esports yelling at a brick wall or something," and he's like, "Thanks for the content," and then apparently posted his like a GIF. But I was in the shower at the time, and I was just like, "Wait," I was like, "Oh, I'll race you, whatever, blah blah blah," and he's like, "I already posted it. I just posted a GIF," and I was like, "Oh, well, all right, fuck you. I'm gonna go interview the brick wall outside and then try to do that." And I was gonna do a second take because that dude walked past, but I was like, "Well, I'm already here. Well, fuck it."
Wait. Then, who stole your content?
Jordan was like, "Thanks for the content," and then just like posted a GIF of some dude yelling at a brick wall.
This bloke's a serial offender.
Yeah, crazy. Always stealing our ideas, Jeez.
Discontent with that content.
Where the fuck? What? He changed his name. Hermes.
Do you want to give us some context to what that tweet was about? So for those, I actually caught it late, so I actually had to read through what I would politely term trash.
There was a lot. Let me go back. I gotta go to tweets and replies. I think it's in this one.
This is where those commentators that aren't comfortable with dead air just say anything.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a podcast, so I think silence on a podcast is a little bit awkward if you don't have a point that really needs to resonate with your audience.
Yes. So thank you for filling said dead air. The initial tweet was a retweet, a quoted tweet of Kev's by Mitch, and Mitch said, "Really upsetting to see for all the new players who didn't take up this opportunity to make new friends. Please make sure you go to the next one. LAN is the lifeblood of AU FPS games and always will be. Nothing like fist bumping your mates after a round win." And that was to Kevin announcing that the 6 teams wasn't enough, so they had to cancel the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And then this dude who changed his @ to I'm Hermes. His @ before was Hermes100T. So I made a joke about, hearing back from Nade Shot in that fake interview I did. He's like, "Can you explain to me why LANs need to exist anymore aside from big time events with lots of cash?" So people tried. Mitch said, I think Mitch replied to the same tweet twice. So I'm not going to go I'm just on the main one channel that goes all the way down. I'm not going to delve into the
Give me a moment just to think about that.
Yeah. Anyway, so Mitch replies, he's like, "It almost has the same feeling as going to IM Sydney. You're going to a venue to meet your friends and play like the pros do." And then Hermes says, "Fortnite is doing $100,000 cups, etc. from home on the regular. Shouldn't Valorant try and do something similar to grow the player base first? I'm not saying $100,000 or even for money. I'm saying it needs to grow the player base."
Why is MJ asking us the question and not this guy?
Yeah.
Why isn't he got his own mailbag?
There is, and then it just goes very deep and there's lots of replies. And then Chiswell tagged a bunch of us, which is when the thread started to blow up because we then came in with a lot of opinions. And then Turtle said something about Fortnite, and then he got really offended. And he's like, my point exactly. As soon as someone mentions Fortnite, you think they are some stupid kid and write them off. And so I just want to, he wrote right, like RIGHT.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you write off a car, It's WRITE, and he's trying to tell us that he's not the stupid kid.
Get right off this.
I thought that was quite funny reading that one. Look, understandably, could have been autocorrect. I always get done by autocorrect these days, but we'll just give him benefit of the doubt.
Do you know what the irony is here?
Yeah. What is the irony?
I mean, if you're going to go the whole Greek mythology route, Hermes is considered to be like the soul guide. He's the guy that is meant to guide souls to the afterlife. So take from that what you will. He's also supposed to be a protector of sorts to essentially humans. So, I mean,
I think I'm going to need him after this. It's just,
and
it's not worth getting into, really.
Yeah, this is doing my brain in.
This is like
he'd always come back with other questions that weren't relevant, or like he'd talk.
It's the same kind of thing from esports starting in 2017. Like that's when Fortnite came out. That's when esports started. Apparently, exactly. You know, these people who have their Fortnite's winnings in their Twitter bio. You know, they think that's the answer to everything.
Yeah, it's like the part where it got interesting was people were using CS as a case study because it has been around for a lot longer. And then every time CS was mentioned, he would just say, "What about Valorant? I'm not that interested in CS," and then just like writes off and doesn't read whatever you wrote.
Mm.
And then Mitch goes, "I ran this tournament for top 8 teams with Komodo for charity." And then he goes, "Top 8 teams. What about everyone else?" And then Nick hits him with the, "Who's going to pay for it?" Apparently, everyone who's already spent years working for free and spending thousands of their own money, doing it for the love of the community, have a hidden agenda. And then he's like, "What costs are involved in making a tweet and some fancy artwork and having a weekly Valorant comp that anyone can enter, not just if you are in the top 8 teams in Australia. You seem to only want the community when they can travel somewhere," which is completely fucking ridiculous.
It's not.
I'll be honest.
I'm getting triggered reading it again.
Fighting over the internet.
I just
no
worked
one
with
wins.
Lenovo for the past 6 weeks in running a weekly Valorant competition that was open to all teams, all players, no entry fee whatsoever. There was a small prize pool, and I never once saw him sign up.
Yeah, he likes Valorant.
But let me just say that the opportunities were there. Still got to support it.
Yep. Just play to play, you know. What else? And there was a lot on that tweet. There was a lot of. Anyway, let's we're getting out of here.
Let's keep this a short one.
Deep. Yeah,
there was some old man yells at cloud on that tweet.
There was a lot of that.
There's a lot of reminiscing.
We went hard. He is a silly man, and I think he learnt a lot. Hopefully, and if he didn't, then he just contradicted himself a lot and didn't grow as a person, and thinks that the Oceanic esports community is a horrible, horrible circle jerk of people, which, you know, it felt like that. I kind of felt bad for him with the amount, like the depth we were going in on him, but, you know, fucking gang mentality, felt good at the time. And I don't know. That was something. That was a day. Anyway, let's get back on topic.
He's going to need some winged crocs. That's what he's going to need.
Yeah. We got Pocket Psych. We got Michelle dropping in the bag again. In the Blast series today, Na'Vi and Astralis both changed personnel between Inferno and Nuke. 6-person squads just don't feel right to me. Happy to have subs required, but not once the match starts. Thoughts? I think it's fine. I think it's POG. That's what I thought we were going to be able to do with Gfinity, but it was before anyone decided they had an open mind, and no one ever tried it. People didn't like the idea of having more than 5 people in a roster, and thought it was just too puggy. And I think 12? This is sick, you know? 12? What was that, one of the teams?
No, all teams were allowed 12 players in their roster for CS at Gfinity.
I mean,
that was when we had clashes on the calendar.
The problem with this is literally just swapping like peripherals.
You'll have site specialists. Yeah, online it's fine, right? But I watched the Astralis Na'Vi game today. It was pretty cool. It was pretty pog. And then when both the players get swapped out, it was like, okay, let's see. But then statistically, you go back and like this. Let's say this is a case study. and you'll statistically go back and you'll say, yeah, look, it's not worth it because the guys that have just played a map are already warmed up. And then you see the guy that comes in, his stats are not very, very good because you're coming up against a lineup of people who've just played a full map. So unless they can find a way to fix that, I think the sub that comes in has got a huge load of work to do to get on the same level as everyone who's just been playing world-class Counter-Strike for the last hour.
Yeah, and not only that too, right? What if this guy is such a huge draw card? Why is he on your bench?
Yeah.
If he's going to be the push that makes your team win, why is he on your bench?
Well, I mean, it's map-based, right? So you'd have like a site specialist for that map. Like you swap out Zipnix for this Bubsky guy because maybe Zip doesn't like Dust 2 or something like that. You know what I mean? Because, I mean, even when I had immunity, EMAG hated Dust 2. You know, like, he didn't play bad on it. He just didn't like it, right? So if I could have put someone else in just for Dust 2, like I'm sure he would like that.
You have several players just wanting to be subbed out for every map.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, and I can see it working. Everyone else is against it, by the way. Like some of the big heads, I guess you could say. Like the big figures in the scene are against it. So, but at the end of the day, it's Blast, and Blast has always been that tournament that tries to forge new ground and won't do anything like everyone else. So it is interesting, and you raise a good point, Jim. Why is he on your bench if he's so good? But the thing is, Counter-Strike is a pretty complex game. There's a lot of stuff to know about it, and no one can be, well, I say no one, but everyone except Simple and Zywu can't be gods at every map and every position and every site. So it makes sense, when you think about it.
Yeah. I want to see the viability of it at lands because you're going to have to get
just have
admins to load whole Nux maybe. Yeah.
Well, you already have your SSD config at LAN, so you just plug in your SSD for the if you could say it before, like when you're doing the vetoes, after the vetoes, if you say, okay, we're going to sub out this guy on the second map, and you have to do it, and it's like, well, the guy you're subbing out might have got a 30 bomb on the first map, and you're like, shit, he's hot. Yeah. You know, so
I imagine they would have had those subs ready ahead of time. Like it's not just a momentary call, right? So we've already seen TOs starting to build stages where they have teams on one side ready, and then the whole stage just rotates. I think ESL were doing that with their event, that the whole stage just rotates, and the other team is ready already on the other side. Both teams, that is. So they've just got basically one set of PCs that are facing the crowd, and then another that's back being set up on by the next team to go. So it's minimizing downtime between games, which is obviously a real pinch point in any schedule, is that setup time for a LAN. How long before we see just that extra circle rotating that 5th and 6th modular desk out? Yeah,
exactly. But interesting. I mean, I can't think of any reason why you'd be against it because, from a spectator point of view, it just adds another layer.
It's different in a professional setting. I know when funnily enough, when I attended my first national in Counter-Strike, which is like way back in 2006, we actually had a 6th player who attended nationals with us. And it depends on the format, and obviously it's different in a professional setting, but from an amateur point of view, to travel all that way and only get like one map.
Oh, yeah.
It just sucked. I felt bad for the one guy that did, unfortunately, only get that one map. And to be honest, I actually do feel sorry for him because I know that the player that when he played, the team played better, and then the player that got the 2 maps, well, we just got pounded into the ground. So yeah, I think in a professional setting, obviously people are getting paid salaries, and that if you accept that you're a rotation player, that you know that's your fate. Like psychologically, you're already at ease with that somewhat, I'd say.
Yeah.
But yeah, in an amateur setting, it's probably not conducive to good development as a team.
Oh, just back on the other topic, like my mind just wandered, which is great because we need to move on anyway. Talking about that dude who was asking if LANs needed to exist, like how good was that? The big Fortnite LAN, the World Cup, Fortnite World Cup, is that what it was? When they had was it over in America? Like all of Click went over. I know that, and they had 100 people on the stage.
Is that where Booger won the?
Oh yeah. Bugger.
if he's Aussie, I'm sure he would have been Bugger, but I think it was Booger.
Yeah,
Took that one out.
Yeah, that one.
That was
a sick event.
That was a spectacle,
Yeah.
and you don't get that spectacle online. Sorry,
It was $1 million.
But also
Like,
too, like
yeah.
how do you
Oh,
breed?
was it
How do
3
you
million?
breed players that perform under pressure in those
Without
sorts of
lands.
environments without lands? I'm sorry, but you're not going to breed tomorrow's champion in your basement because
No.
they're gonna eventually have to play in a high pressure situation. And sure, it's all well and good to have them play 1 or 2 cups from home, but people get sick of that pretty quickly. They'll want that big event. They'll want something to play for. You don't get experience with big events just sitting at home. You don't.
Cool. Well, now that my mind has wandered back this direction, we have Tag, who is triple dipping. That's a lot of dipping.
Oof.
That's a lot
It's
of
been
dipping.
a long one as it is.
Yeah. Let's
Oh,
go.
there's still more questions. All
Give
right,
us-
so Tag's first question. I want some quick fire answers on these ones. Nigerian prince gives you $20 million. You must spend it in Australia for Australian esports. How would you spend it?
I'd spend it on the
I'd
phone
make-
to scams because my money's gone.
What would you use, Ian?
I mean, look, $20 million, who gives a shit? Like, you're not even trying to get profit back or anything like that. I would just make like a franchise league for Counter-Strike, just for Australia only. And I'd have like, your Div 1, your TBGL basically, but franchised. Div
Make
1,
this-
2, 3.
I'd make this huge venue in Australia with bars, with like stadiums, but without any experience in esports. That's it.
Why?
You love digging a hole. I'd just fucking, I don't know. I'd try to push it back into the community, make grassroots.
I don't know what you got to. I want the kids on the bus talking about Counter-Strike again. When I got on the bus in Sydney and I was going to work and they're all talking about League of Legends, a bit of me died.
How about billboards everywhere?
Billboards everywhere, TV commercials. I want Twitch commercials. I want you to go to a Twitch stream about Fortnite and be like, Counter-Strike, Australia, tell your friends. And, like, you've got homework? Who cares? Play Counter-Strike, 5 versus 5. Get your friends. Have 5 friends from your school. Beat up the other school. Like a warehouse commercial.
That'd be cool. All right. Well, I'm happy with those answers.
Society
We will move. Richard Lewis has recently stated that CSGO is on its last legs and will be dead in 2 years, and attributes this to lack of input from Valve. Thoughts? I have not seen that, but I can see how overseas it feels that way. NA, CS,
all that
is
matters is
struggling.
overseas, right? Like, don't look at Australia. We're going to die away before anyone else. But I mean, it would be a sign that it's dying. You look overseas. I remember, and I watched the stream today because I was working, and it's just nice to listen to Richard when he's on one of those tangents. And he was dead right about everything. And I remember back to watching SK, and he didn't talk about this specifically, but I remember watching SK and Fnatic and how that was like a big deal in 1.6. Man, even eventually that got old. Like, SK can only verse Fnatic so many times on so many maps before you just don't give a shit anymore. And someone said, Astralis versus Na'Vi just got 400k viewers across all platforms. It's like, yeah, but how many times do those two teams verse each other? Simple is like the best player in the world right now. Like, of course the draw cards are there. And Astralis obviously were Grand Slam winners. They've got their fan base and everything. But that's only going to last for so long. Eventually that's going to wear off. Who's going to watch those games when they're week in, week out? They're the same games, same map, same thing, just rinse, repeat, exactly like we have here in Australia, where even the casters don't want to do the same games anymore because they've just been stuck doing them. So, yeah, look, he was right. The developers have really let Counter-Strike down. And, I mean, I was saying that all along as well. Obviously when they did the majors slots and they gave Australia 2 slots at the major, and then when they merged us into Asia, and I was like, a bit hesitant about that, but I thought we were still good enough. And then all of a sudden Tyloo and Mongols were coming up, and Australia was then getting 0 teams at the major, and I was a bit worried about that. But yeah, look, I think Valve, in their decision making and everything they've done, Richard puts up a pretty good case that it's just not enough. Everyone else, Riot and everything else, Ice Frog, Dota 2, just having that there with like the international and Dota 2 getting that $22 million prize pool, and then like Counter-Strike just getting shit on and just getting like 250K, even though Counter-Strike made more money than Dota in its cases and everything like that.
We get $1 million prize pools, Ian.
Yeah, well,
$1 million.
Considering a Dota 2 player can win one tournament and make $8 million and then never have to play a game ever again,
Yeah.
For people and we're talking about last place at the international, you come dead last at the international, you're making a tidy profit. Whereas, teams like us and Vox and Immunity, when we came almost dead last at the major, we made $2,000, for the whole team. So, you're not really getting rewarded for being in the top 16 in the world.
It should be a life-changing event, right? Like winning a major should be a life-changing event.
Attending a major should be a life-changing event. Winning a major should be just like astronomical. Being the number one in the world at your craft. And then you got teams like Astralis and Liquid who just repetitively were doing it. It's like they could quit CS tomorrow and be broke. So how does that even work?
Yeah.
What kid is going to be sitting on a school bus and watching, looking for an esport to get into, and they're going to go, I could pick Counter-Strike and never make a dime, or I could get into League of Legends and make a salary, or I can get into Dota 2 and maybe win that one tournament and get rich and buy my parents a house or something.
Yeah, exactly. I just don't think the sparkle has been put on the event by the developer that it should have had. Like, they're raking it in from the cases, and they have a 15% rake back from any market transaction anyway, and you never get your money out of the Steam wallet. So I'd argue that it's 100% rake back anyway. So unless you're savvy about which third-party trading sites you can get your cash back out of, you're not getting it out of it. Valve's got your money. So they know that it's a cash camel, and that's why I said camel, because the desert is currently what we are all situated in terms of Counter-Strike. There's this mirage that people basically don't really believe is there, and they believe it's there, and they believe we can get there, but they keep trekking through the desert, and eventually there's nothing. We're all going to die of thirst if we keep going the way we're going. We need something to actually appear on the horizon for Counter-Strike, and it needs to be an intervention from the developer. Sure, they really are happy with the third party, satellite tournaments here and there.
So
but they really need to do something
the crux of the stream was with Richard was that we've had the match fixing, we've had the scandals, we've had the cheating with like Forsaken. I looked up Forsaken again today just to like refresh my memory of how fucking incredible that was, that someone was at an ESL event and cheating on LAN with fucking word.exe.
It was actually Extremesland.
Well, was it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, it said had ESL in the footage, so I was like, wow, that's crazy. Just like the lack of anything. Like, we've got this ESEC people, like, don't get me wrong, they're doing a great job, I suppose, but they're hamstrung. Like, they can't do what the developer can do. And the last time the developer got involved, it was like a lifetime ban for iBuyPower. You know what I mean? So it's just it's not a good look. It would be and I was saying this back when League of Legends Riot was here in Australia, and they were basically cuddling the players of League of Legends and just making their life a dream. They had a really good salary. Then you're getting an extra salary from your sponsor or your org who you work for, because they had sponsors and everything like that. Getting topped up. Man, I was so jealous. 2015, 2016, these guys were making six figures, like unbelievable. And here we were in Counter-Strike making zero, and we were attending majors, not just like some shitty Australian LAN. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
How can it sustain itself like that? Like, what kid wants to leave high school and spend 100 hours a fortnight playing Counter-Strike when they're up against that? No one.
Yeah, it doesn't really. This is the kind of stuff that you should be inspiring kids to, or future pros to achieve. And at the moment, it's like, well,
even like a WCG, like things like that. That was enough back in the day. You'd be like, man, I want to go represent my country in this computer game against and be the best in the world.
Well, put it this way: when those shambolic WESG events were put on, they're putting on more money than Valve is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, that's just a huge red flag. It's the fact that these other events are able to. Don't get me wrong; they actually didn't really pay out their prize money, as far as I'm concerned. I think Wendigo's still chasing theirs.
Yeah,
but
well,
in terms of the fact that these other events can take the shine off the amount of prize pool, that is that a major? Like, a major just should be beyond reproach, right? A major should be the pinnacle of your title, and that's it.
Yep.
It's not that at the moment.
And the thing is, we've got a track record of it. 1.6, that died in the end. Then they made CS Source. Well, that was a joke. And what Richard was saying was dead on. He said, if it wasn't for Jedi to making Z Block, the game was just not competitively viable at all. And then they did that thing with the dynamic pricing. It's like they just have this track record of just shitting on Counter-Strike. And then they brought out Global Offensive, which, they didn't even develop. Hidden Path developed that. And then it, like I was saying for years, it was like a red-headed stepchild and just getting shit on. He was just getting, the crumbs in comparison to Dota 2. It just sucks, man. It just sucks. For anyone that really loved Counter-Strike for the last 20 years, you've got to be somewhat of a, I don't know, what do you call it? A masochist, or is it sadicist?
Masochist.
Yeah, I don't know. Whichever one derives pleasure from pain, that's what you are. If you're a Counter-Strike fan, yeah.
It's also too, like, I don't know, there was a period there where we were just hopeful that it would change. And so we were all suffering Stockholm Syndrome.
It really was Stockholm Syndrome because we ended up going to Stockholm. But 2013, 2014, 15, we got treated pretty well. We had ESL, we had DreamHack, we had Faceit. And then obviously the developer just didn't do anything again. So those companies just were like, well, what's the point of going to Australia?
Yeah. Well, I think to at least fix it in the short term, or to make it have a third leg, so to speak, just give us some fucking new maps, swap 3 out.
Well, they said that about 1.6, mate. There was only 4 maps there.
5.
5, yeah.
One of them wasn't even.
If you're going to include the custom map.
Tuscan. One of them wasn't even owned by Valve. So the fact that
and now you got 7 maps, and you still got Cobble that's sitting there not being used. It's just not enough, man. Maps aren't the answer. The answer is just being there for your game, I think, Ice Frog and all of that.
Don't get me wrong. I actually think new maps would change the whole same teams week in, week out situation.
Yeah.
If there was a rotation, like a seasonal rotation or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, there was actually...
Oh, speaking of, season, Cobble, Cash. Get them back in. I hate new Cash, but get them in.
I didn't like Season. I actually didn't really... Well, not the CSGO version of it anyway. It was different. I will give it that. The fact that we were just all after something different to play. And that's actually what I liked about back in the day, the CPL. They introduced their own maps into the pool. And we're like, you actually have to play these. So... CPL Strike was what Mirage is based on. So they actually did have some significant sway, and I actually would like to see
Mill obviously is what Tuscan was based off.
Yeah, Mill.
And then you have CPL Fire as well, which never got a remake.
Fire took you 4 minutes to get to the bomb site.
That whole middle area was just like a waste of fucking time.
But the fact that, I don't know, like maybe the TOs, like we already see them developing maps for the purpose of their own custom content. We saw it here in Australia. We saw the Red Bull Flick stuff. We saw Blast obviously do their aim challenges for content, right? Maybe we start to see some TOs actually start to contract some map developers and go
I
from
don't
there.
know.
Maybe it needs to, Ian, maybe there needs to be a new format for CS.
I want to see maps like that actually take hold of things like surfing and some good movement. You know, like old Nuke had some cool things with it, which new Nuke didn't have because they were like, hey, let's just make all these jumps achievable by everyone that plays the game. And it kind of, you know, lowered the skill ceiling by doing that, which is kind of annoying. Because it was like the people that put in the effort to like learn the KZ, get the jumps right, could do the LJ themselves to get on silo, like solo every round. You wouldn't need a boost, which allows one other player to go and do something else somewhere else on the map.
It was the same in CS 1.6 as well. Good
Yeah.
movement was actually rewarded. And even something as simple as getting into the B window on Dust 2. To get there quickly and efficiently, you actually had to be really proficient at movement. Same with getting through the vents on Nuke. You actually had to crouch the entire way. But there were players that could actually bunny hop their way through. And that was when like bunny hopping was actually quite a difficult skill. You had to time your crouching as well as your jumps as well. So yeah, look, players were actually able to adapt to
1.6
game
in Red
mechanics.
Rock, like there were pros that couldn't master that for some reason. I don't understand, but yeah, it was just that hard.
Do you remember the Super Red Rock, like the big red
Yeah.
rock?
Yeah, I used to
The
enjoy
thing
that
around
one.
the outside, that was so painful because you'd get one guy
The
up
20-second wait of just looking at the wall as you're slowly going up.
Yeah, but then once you're up there, entirety of outside was yours. It was also a huge skywalk issue, but yeah.
Is this like somewhere outside on Nuke?
All right, so
like old Nuke or?
So picture this, Mac, on CSGO Nuke, where the river is and all that around there. There was actually this huge red cliff face, and it was up higher than Silo is currently. However, it was just this huge flat surface, and essentially you could see the entirety of outside, and you could almost run all the way out around to where Secret is now. So you essentially had this commanding view, and all people could see was this dot that was your player model's head.
Yeah, but the headshot hitbox in 1.6 was so forgiving that like it was kind of risky. Like if all they could see was your head, like you would die.
Yeah,
like,
true.
There was players that would just snap your head off.
But you could see the entirety of them.
But you could get all the information you wanted, yeah, definitely.
And you could crouch bomb. So you could actually make yourself a little bit more difficult.
And you used to have to use 20 HP to get down to jump onto the red crate afterwards, but then people figured out the surf down to the metal wall. Yeah.
Right. Are you guys talking? So I'm just watching a video of the Red Rock. So Red Rock was where Silo was.
Yeah, Red Rock
is
the
rock you're talking about?
Silo.
No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about the outside of the map.
It's like the outside of the map, where the fence is now on Nuke.
Yeah, I can see it now in this video at least, so I have context of what you're talking about.
It was a huge rock. It was just a huge
and it was
face.
allowed. It was allowed.
Yeah. Well,
Bring
actually,
back Aztec.
CEOs banned it at LAN. I did. Because I just hated little online kids that came and did it.
Yeah. See, 1.6 had its problems, and they were not addressed. They're probably still in 1.6 today, like being able to look under Vine's wall on train.
Under smokes.
Yeah, underneath smokes, flash bug, throwing your flashbang into the box in Vines or at ramp on Nuke, stuff like that. And that was just the sign of the developer just not giving a shit. Do you know what they did? They put fucking movie adverts on the walls. They didn't fix any of that. They didn't fix any of the bugs. They just started advertising movies in game and advertising the orange box for Half-Life in game. And
I started seeing the first non-Valve ads I started seeing were actually government ads for the Transport Authority
of Brisbane.
No, let me Google it. It was with TAC, Transport Accident Commission from Victoria. They had Victorian TAC ads because the servers were based in Victoria, so they had "Don't Drink Drive" as some of the advertising in Counter-Strike. So that was towards the end of things. But yeah, they would rather make money off their game or try and find revenue streams to just squeeze more money out of it than actually fix some of the issues, because they recognize people play it. Obviously, they knew that they were getting eyes on the ads. They had the stats. But the fact that they chose to implement that
Instead of fixing all of the skywalks or the little bugs, all that sort of stuff, all the illegal. They started getting rid of illegal boosts. Not illegal boosts, but like the boosts on top of the mid doors on Dust 2 and stuff like that. Yeah. It was just like, why? No one asked you to do that.
That's the attitude. They put that on the TOs to police that. It's like, no, we could fix that. We could put a skybox there, and they'd never be able to get there.
Yeah.
But no, we're just going to make the TOs police it because they want to use our game. We don't need to spend man hours doing that because there's no profitable return.
So yeah. Can't wait till we have ads in CSGO.
Yep. Well, we've got new skins as well. I'm just waiting to see where those new skins are used so people can't see people again. And for TOs, like, I don't know. It's like TOs have been told apparently not to ban the skins. But what was the thing with like Instafrag Ian? Why couldn't we remove the skins from the hub? Like have it as a thing? Is it because Faceit wasn't allowed to?
I just don't think it was a setting.
Yeah, it's not a setting. It used to be, but when they had the holiday editions of CSGO, so remember the
Halloween.
Yeah.
They had masks on the players. You could disable that in official settings, like in your official settings, but you couldn't do it at least on server side, you could do it. But now I don't think, Valve has probably removed that option.
I remember Valve was saying that they want all TOs to use the new skins, and that's why they're not putting in an option to fix it. But then the TOs were like, well, no.
I think what happened is ESEA built their own custom thing, which forced
like a min models
skins on everyone.
Yep.
So every time someone would,
that's what you would have to do as well. And I think Valve would actually be upset with that.
But again, they're putting it on the TOs to police. It's something that they could easily do, and they're just putting it on the TOs to police. So I think that just reflects the attitude of Valve and has done for some time. There's a history there, Ian. There's a history of repeated negligence in actually fixing some of the issues that are really plaguing the game, as opposed to those that are just making the money.
I mean, you look at the majors now, and they're like a little bit fancy. But I remember the first. This wasn't even the first major, I don't think. But like we went to Katowice in 2013, and it was like a BYOC in a basketball court.
Game is paradise. Really.
Like if you look up iBar Power at Katowice 2013. You'll see like live footage of like all the teams in a square, 5x5 square of PCs just facing each other and playing in the same hall. It was just...
It reminds me of those MSI Beat It comps that used to run back in CS 1.6. And it was literally, you were playing your opposite team, except it was all just a big square of tables, and they had on the four sides of
it was just like 5 here, 5 here, 5 here, and then 5 here.
Yeah. And you were facing your opposition.
And it was all your group. All your group is on the one square. It was like, whose idea was this? Now I'm versing the team next to me. Great. Yeah. I speak English. They speak Swedish. They're NIP. They also speak English. What chance do you have?
And they know we're flashed.
Yeah, and they know we're flashed, yeah.
Literally everything in their favour. Yeah. Anyway, in the interest of us going over 2 hours again now.
I don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, we already have. So
no, we haven't.
Not
in record time.
We're getting there. Okay, where are we? So MJ has asked, does this make me literally prehistoric? Because he's prehistoric.
Yes. If you ever land using anything like a serial cable and not an RJ45, then you're prehistoric, mate.
And Nielsen data would consider you to be a statistical anomaly.
Yeah, he's talking something about TCP/IP.
You don't.
Something about StarCraft.
You don't need to worry about that.
It's just null.
Basically, he's just saying fancy words about how two computers struggled to talk to each other back in the day.
That was,
of course,
an era we call pre-sports.
Oh no!
Jesus Christ! All right, Tag's not getting his third one ready.
Well, actually,
that's you've had two. Two's enough. Artemis says I was forced back into CS.
Yeah.
So this is in response to our tweet, which basically said, "What were you doing when esports was created?"
These aren't questions.
Yeah. So they're answering our questions.
Never do this again, Jim. Never do this again.
I thought It was a hypothetical. I thought people would actually get the reference. Some did.
No, they would not. They thought you were trying to make conversation, and that's great. But I'm waiting now next week for my mailbag. I'm expecting like,
Mac,
dear Mac.
You could just read
the weather has been
questions.
quite nice recently. I've been well. The family, the kids, everything's going fine. Thanks for asking. I hope you guys are well as well. Just checking in. Kind regards, fucking, Olga or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, Dog Ryan let us know that he ate this fucking very big looking hot dog 3 years ago. Good on him.
I am.
And Connie said she was at her first LAN for WPGI in the Gold Coast, not knowing how to set up properly and playing on 64 tick without in-ears while seated closest to the big speaker on stage. Very pog.
She used my PC. It was the only PC on the network that wasn't running with a Pixie operating system and didn't crash when the network crashed.
Beautiful. Well, there's one more question, and it's Tag's one we skipped because I didn't notice the rest of it wasn't actually questions. It was just
a quad dip?
Statements. Yeah, well, no, it's a triple dip. We just didn't ask the third one. 2017, I've blocked out from my memory. Thoughts on the situation brewing behind the CSPPA and Blast Premiere, whether it was the right choice by CSPPA to intervene then, or whether they could have better intervened elsewhere. What the fuck is he talking about? Someone get me up to speed.
So essentially, what I've been able to...
It's all mouse sports.
It's all mouse sports, but also it was essentially around player comms and the TOs having access to player comms for content. And I actually haven't been able to go too much further into that, but essentially was that the teams refused, but then they had their player agreements essentially flexed on them and said, no, you have to give this.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things, but essentially the players agreed to it initially, and it's in contract that they agreed to it. And the agreement was that something like they're going to be kept for 90 days or not used for 90 days or just something like that. Because the whole point of it is they were going to use it to identify if anyone was stream cheating or anything like that. So it wasn't just for publicity reasons, but it was so that they could understand if someone was cheating and using information that they wouldn't necessarily have, right? The concern was from the other players was that somehow, and it's possible that somehow the comms had been leaked and people were talking about things that they could only know if they had heard the comms. So that's when the player association was like, oh, well, if someone's watching the comms and leaking, like maybe a commentator watched some comms or heard some comms and then talked about it on broadcast, they would have just been like, nah, scrap that. So, yeah. Because you know how commentators, they all have their inherent bias and their friends, so they talk between them whether they like it or not. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think it's a sticky situation to get in because I actually think a lot of those agreements too are not necessarily agreed to by the players, but on behalf of the organisation. That's essentially got a franchise deal on the line, right?
Yeah.
It's like if they want to actually make their revenue share, they actually have to agree to a set amount of terms and conditions, and they can sneak those sorts of things anywhere. And I think it depends on how much they really want to be involved with the league. And I think the players are just sort of caught in the middle right now because obviously their interests are purely strategical. Their IP as players is their strategy, and particularly for a team like Mouse Sports, which at the moment is probably struggling a little bit with the tactical side of things. So they're probably, they're introducing a new coach, trying to get him up to speed as quickly as possible, but obviously reworking a lot of things too. So to give up that sort of information is probably their main concern, is they don't want that sort of stuff leaked even into circulation within the TO. So I think there really needs to be from the CSPPA I guess more consistency around this sort of thing, right? Like they're only intervening on certain issues from time to time. It just seems as though they sort of pick and choose which battles that they take. So I think in terms of the way I'm viewing this situation is that obviously the situation's shitty, but I'd like to see a more consistent approach from the CSPPA in actually dealing with these issues, because it doesn't sound like this is the first time that
this is another case for the PPA to be like, you're not wrong, but you're dicks. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're not wrong, but you're being a dick. So, yeah, watch this space, I guess, because it just doesn't make sense for tournament organisers to work with the CSPPA anymore.
No, exactly. Particularly if they're just going to pick and choose which TOs that they side with.
Yeah.
I mean, automatically, the ones that they don't side with are just going to go, why do we need you?
Yeah, it's pretty much going to be just ESL, and no one else will use them.
It'll just be like those ESL rankings.
And then people will be like, oh, we're not playing any other tournaments, and then ESL wins, and they're just like the only franchise. And then that's why the developer needs to step in and be like, okay, this is bullshit. But yeah, that's what the whole conversation was this morning. So if you haven't watched it, and if you're a fan of Richard Lewis, or even if you're not, just, I'd recommend watching the VOD. And I think there's a by the numbers tomorrow that they're going to rehash it all. Yeah. But it's going to have Thor in it. And
another strong opinion.
You already know.
Well, yeah. Well, he's got Flashpoint, so you'd think he'd have to mellow out a little bit, but we'll see.
I think he'd obviously keep their best interest in mind, but he's not going to put he'll put those that need to be put on blast on blast.
While he's working with Flashpoint, he will die.
Everyone on blast with that bloody microphone, Jim. Jesus, the amount of peaking it's done today. Yes,
peaking. It's only doing it in. It's only doing it in Discord.
So is it?
Yeah, it'll be fine on the mix.
Yeah.
I'm at minus 12 decibels in the mix, Mac.
Beautiful. Were you 10 seconds ago? That's the question.
No,
well, I think that's it. I'm shutting the mailbag. I'm stopping us before we get to 2 hours because that's a lot of hours to talk.
It's a lot of content
to listen. Yeah.
Anyway,
Foots down. Bag shut.
That's the mailbag closed for the week.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Thanks for coming. Cheers for your lovely letters, and send more next time. Thank you. Goodbye from Mac.
We'll pose it as less of a question.
Yes.
To you, and more of a ask us questions sort of tweet. If people took it a little bit too literally. Rather than have to filter out the responses that maybe were just in reply to the tweet as an actual question. But nonetheless, I think that's pretty much us done for the week. I don't have any final thoughts or any other topics that have come to mind, gentlemen. So anything else from you, Mac?
No, that's it. I'm done. I'm looking. I've been attracted to the FPLC queue, which was at +2, but now it's at +3 because it's starting to die. So I'm trying to get in that.
And what about that time of night? For me, I guess it would be Merry Christmas to everyone if you're into that. And I don't think we'll be doing one on anywhere near Christmas Eve. So I guess Happy New Year as well. And we'll see everyone in the new year. Stay safe. Don't do anything I wouldn't do.
Don't sign anything he wouldn't sign either.
Yeah.
I pretty much echo those sentiments. I think obviously this year's probably been really testing for a lot of people in the esports space. We'll probably still be testing in the final few days as well. So I just think, obviously if you're doing it tough, hold on to your support network and whatnot, and really just try and see this year out. I think things in the esports space, whilst there's been a lot of bad news that unfortunately we've had to talk about and report on, in even just our last 2 podcasts and going back to May, it was a long layoff for us. But I think if anyone is going to take anything out of this year, it's the fact that esports got a lot of attention in the right areas, and moving forward, I think esports is probably going to see an upwards trend once we get out of the woods here. So. Yeah, hold on tight. And if you only joined us in 2017 for esports, this might be a new trend for you. But for those of us that have been around the block a few times, we know that it comes in ebbs and flows. So it's just a matter of riding it out, because in terms of what's on the horizon, we don't know. But so far, history will tell us that it's always been positive things. There's always been positive uptrends and whatnot. But echo what Ian said. Stay safe. Merry Christmas if you celebrate that. And if not, happy holidays. And we will catch you all in the new year.